So for today's episode of the Daily Objective, while I was preparing my notes, I was looking at them for about half an hour. I was looking at the blank page, mainly because there is not much to say. The Hamas just, I think, just an hour ago or so, has accepted the ceasefire deal. Netanyahu is expected to if I haven't checked the news in the last few minutes, so we might have had the announcement already, and if not, we'll have it in the next few hours. Um, what else is there? From inside, maybe just to mention from inside Israeli cabinet, Ben Gvir has said he pretty much has no power to stop it, which also makes me sad that we have to rely on almost thugs when it comes to sort of demanding civilization, demanding not negotiating with Hamas. So as far as we know, this deal is pretty much as good as done. And what will focus more on the sort of other aspects of this deal on the reality show. On today's episode of the Daily Objective, we'll talk about Trump and from in many perspectives how people view it as him basically betraying Israel or betraying his words. Now, I was someone who was skeptical of Trump in many aspects besides Israel, but when it came to Israel, that was the one thing on one way, I at least hoped for something better. But even there, I was a bit skeptical. But even in my most tedious mind, I wouldn't imagine he would do that even before even taking office. So on today's episode of the Daily Objective, we'll go over basically what Biden wasn't able to do in more than a year, Trump has done in pretty much less than a week almost, depending on how far back we go. We have a super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much. He said, "This is a gift to Hamas." And it absolutely is. Joining me today for the Daily Objective is James Valliant. And James, what do you think?
Well, it's a gift to Hamas, as Jonathan says, and worse, and worse. I mean, just yesterday, we were listening to Donald Trump's nominee to be Secretary of Defense saying that his position is that Hamas should be completely destroyed. And,
Every single member of Hamas should
every
be killed.
single member of Hamas should be destroyed. Whereas this deal, I mean, it's hard even to get my mouth to say the word because it's a deal with evil. Guarantees the survival of Hamas. They're releasing how many terrorists? How many Palestinian terrorists? Now, Donald Trump, in doing this, is also officially recognizing Hamas as a good faith negotiating partner. So we're getting moral sanction of Hamas. We're getting Hamas members released back into the wild. And so this guarantees the continued existence of Hamas. In effect, once the Islamic terrorists get their act together again, who knows how long it'll be. And now with the release of all these terrorists from the deal, it'll be sooner rather than later. They will have been rewarded, Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump, you are rewarding the taking of hostages. You are almost guaranteeing that hostage taking will occur in future. That is what you're doing here. You're rewarding hostages. We don't know how many of these hostages are even still alive. And it is, as you say, a total betrayal of the position that he and his people had been taking. I mean, he sounded so tough. There'll be hell to pay. All hell will break loose. I'll blow Iran to smithereens. ... No, this is a total betrayal. Hamas is guaranteed survival. He's going to ensure that by releasing a bunch of monsters in this. We don't even get all the hostages back at once. We don't even know how many hostages are still alive. They won't even guarantee how many hostages are still alive and what they're going to trickle out with the hostages. What comes to my mind was, of course, Ayn Rand's article, "Doesn't Life Require Compromise?" I urge everyone to read that article. It is a brilliant article. I think we have a link to it. I hope we can share with everyone. You do not negotiate with evil. Full stop. To reach a compromise means you have shared values and shared goals. If there is no principle that you share in common, if there is no value that you share in common, it is wrong to negotiate. It is, you are hurting your own interests in the long run, necessarily. It's, Ayn Rand has the great example. When a burglar breaks into your home, you don't start negotiating over the spoons. Once you've done that, you've given a green light sanction to the burglary and the theft in the first place. And that's exactly what's happening here. If you don't, we do not share any values with Hamas. Hamas exists for one purpose: to destroy Israel, to kill Jews. That is the one thing they exist for. And any recognition of them, any sanction of them, much less the release of all of these Hamas monsters from Israeli custody, we're releasing murderers to kill more Israelis and Americans. Yeah, we don't even know if they're still alive, as I say. And what we have to wait for it to trickle out now is absolutely despicable on every front and in every way. It is a total betrayal of all the hopes that I had had on this score. But Mr. Trump is let's make a deal. Mr. Trump is art of the deal. And what he's proving here is that there is no actor so vile on this globe that he wouldn't actually sign a deal with them.
Yeah, I mean, we also have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. And someone is asking, wait, is this Trump's doing? He isn't in yet, and Biden has been doing some egregious stuff before leaving office. So what's important to remember that while, Trump hasn't officially taken office, he's still has a lot of maybe not sort of the actual powers of president, but the presumptive powers of president. His words carry a lot of stuff, and we also know he or more specifically his cabinet, or sort of his upcoming cabinet, specifically Witkoff, his I think envoy to Middle East, has been not only talking to Netanyahu about the deal, has been actively pressuring Netanyahu into a deal, basically wanting this deal to happen, wanting the basically the sort of ceasefire to happen before Trump takes office, before basically Trump is in any way sort of directly involved in it. And that's
His
yeah.
personal political status is more important to him than the actual safety of Israel, the actual safety of Americans. Something is more important to him than future hostage taking. Something is more important to him than the continued existence of Hamas, who took these Israeli and American hostages. So no, my God, talk about disgusting. Yeah, of course. Was it his threats is it the fact that Donald Trump is about to become president come Monday? Yeah. And of course, over the last couple of months, he is the one that people are negotiating with abroad. It makes sense because in a week from now, he will be the commander in chief and the one doing all the negotiating for America. So yes, all the quote credit goes to Trump. The credit for doing what? For doing the despicable thing Biden was trying to do. So, in effect, another thing we were discussing before we came on air is that competency with an evil policy is far worse than incompetency with an evil policy. So, if Donald Trump is effective at getting Hamas's attention and pressuring Israel in a way that Biden couldn't pressure Netanyahu, it's all the worse. It's all the more despicable.
Yeah, and maybe we can go a little bit into Trump's own comments, because I've seen some. He was in an interview basically saying, or basically believing that agreement was imminent, perhaps by the end of the week, warning that if the deal is not struck, there will be trouble like never seen before. And
he doesn't want the political problem. He doesn't want the difficult political issue that was confronting Biden. He wants that off his chest. He doesn't want justice. He doesn't want peace in the Middle East. He doesn't want the safety of Israelis. What he wants is a political convenience come next week.
Yeah, I mean, we remember someone, I think, corrected us that Trump didn't say that he would unleash hell, but that there would be like hell would unleash upon Gaza, something basically trying to correct it. But when it comes to sort of all the statements Trump has made, oftentimes it doesn't specify who the hell will be unleashed
Yes,
for.
what the hell
Maybe.
is and what that was. But he did say if there were still hostages, that all hell would be unleashed. There'd be hell to pay. He at one point said if they're about Iran, You blow them to smithereens if they threaten Americans. Well, wait a minute. Hamas has got Americans and Israelis as hostages right now. So, as far as I'm concerned, he is betraying all of the promise. In other words, in order to get elected president, he was satisfying people who, like us, are very pro-Israel and pro-civilization. He betrayed that promise. All of that strong language that he said about hostage taking, about harming Americans abroad, about harming Israel, all of it has been betrayed now. All of it, as far as I'm concerned. He is pressuring a deal. He's pressuring Netanyahu to take a deal that Biden couldn't get Netanyahu to accept. He's threatening Hamas to the point of saying, "But look, it wasn't the threats, is it? It's the promise of survival. It's the fact that a bunch of your terrorists are going to get released, and they get the moral sanction of being a good faith negotiating partner." That is what is despicable and beyond words in my mind. And it will guarantee more hostage taking. It will guarantee the survival of Hamas. That's what this whole deal is doing. And if Netanyahu is sucked into it, and we could be getting the announcement any minute now, of course, Netanyahu is betraying. But we were on this. I know we've said this before, but Razi and I, what was it, October 9th of 2023, where Razi and I were saying that it is unlikely, given the moral thinking. I put moral in quotes again. The kind of ethical thinking that we have from our political leaders, that this was going to be the end. Yeah, we did call this, ladies and gentlemen, especially Razi, and 15 months ago, just days after the hostages were taken and the atrocities were committed. And have we forgotten those atrocities? Do we even know how many of the hostages are still alive? We know how brutally the others were treated. How much worse might it be for these that have been there for 15 months plus? So it's utterly disgusting in my mind. And sadly, it guarantees the continued existence of Hamas and future hostage taking, I think. So there are no words for how utterly despicable this is, and how justice, reason, and civilization are betrayed by this deal.
Okay, this is actually disgusting. We have a deal. Trump becomes first leader to announce hostage ceasefire deal, besting Biden. He was quicker than Biden to announce a deal. And I'm also reading that it looks like Israel, while sort of accepting the deal, basically the actual vote will be on tomorrow, Thursday, in the morning. So we might have the official confirmation maybe a bit later. But yeah,
If
it looks like,
Netanyahu signs
yeah.
off, it does go to the cabinet for approval,
Yeah,
right?
and it will most likely be completely put through. So the one thing I mentioned at the start is the only sort of opposition is coming from Ben Gvir. He is trying to convince Smotrich, but as I've said yesterday, even if all the right-wing ministers pretty much go against it, or let's say resign from the government, then the sort of the more left side of the Israeli parliament, well, that there is barely any left, but sort of the opposition will just swoop in and basically agree with the deal, accept it, and go with Netanyahu, because basically they have been calling for the deal the
If
whole
we
time. So
care about women and children being taken hostage, we cannot negotiate with the people who took them hostage. We cannot. They killed women and children. They did horrific atrocities on October 7th, and we're supposed to negotiate with them for the release of what? Some dead bodies and some tortured hostage victims that will guarantee, practically guarantee, that future hostage taking by terrorists will occur. They've been rewarded for it. They've been completely rewarded for it. And get this, the way I see it is that this is all for Mr. Trump's political convenience. So he won't have this big issue and all these big promises, this big noise he's made about going after Hamas and Iran, and he won't have to keep any of those promises.
yeah, I mean, sort of the thing we've always been hearing about Trump, and he recently even repeated it. He said if he was the president, this wouldn't have happened. And many people said that, under Trump there was no new war. Under Trump, it was peace. First of all, I always had a problem with this thing, because even when it came to Israel, the Great March of Return happened under Trump administration, so that doesn't work. American citizens were killed under Trump administration, and he didn't do anything about it. the specific coming from Israel. So again, I don't accept he surrendered to Taliban. I mean, I don't accept like any of those. Um,
Well, let me put it this way.
yeah,
Unless Mr.
I'll just
Trump,
yeah, I'll just quickly mention that
okay,
I'll
I'm
give it to
sorry.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. But basically, like again, imagine any truly great or even good leader saying it. Like imagine, do you think Churchill once said that if I was the prime minister, World War II wouldn't have happened, or maybe he said it once somewhere, but like would he ever use it to justify making deal with the Nazis? It's like,
Right.
okay, this wouldn't have happened if I was, but now that it did happen and I am here, I am going to finish this. I'm not going to just make a deal just because this wouldn't have happened in some alternative reality.
Well, let me put it this way. For Trump to, well, there's really no way to make up for this monstrous deal because, as I say, it guarantees the continuation of Hamas and it rewards hostage taking rather than punishing it. But Mr. Trump, you do still have a few things on your plate in the area, don't you? Don't you? Is the Red Sea and the Suez Canal going to be fully open for trade? Is Iran going to get a nuclear bomb? And that'll be on your watch, Mr. Trump. And Mr. Trump, I'm going to hold you all the more accountable to the extent that you do not destroy the leadership in Iran and its nuclear program. I will hold you personally responsible. I know I'm alone out here, but at least there'll be a principled voice here at Ayn Rand Center UK holding Mr. Trump's feet as much as we can to the fire if he despicably sanctions ongoing terrorism, the source of this terrorism in Tehran, which, of course, as a responsible leader, if he really was a strong leader, he will be a weak-kneed little pussy, excuse me. He will be the most despicable coward if he does not go after Iran's leadership, its nuclear program, if he does not make sure that the Houthis are taken care of and that the Red Sea and the Suez Canal are opened. But given this kind of negotiation, he will make a deal with anyone. He'll make a deal with the Ayatollah. He'll make a deal with the most monstrous, savage leaders on this planet, and he's proving it right now.
Yeah, and we also have a super chat from Gail. Thank you so much. And sort of my biggest problem when it came to sort of partisanship or sort of being a Democrat or being a Republican is sort of almost the inability to basically criticize your own
You're
basically
wrong.
your own party. Uh, when I'm from Slovakia, I'm part of one of the parties, and whenever my party goes wrong in some way, I never try to do well. Maybe try to justify it. It's like this is bad. This shouldn't
This is
happen,
really
and this
bad.
and this leaves a black mark on what I think of my own party, my own thing. And if there is enough of these things, I have to leave. I can no longer sanction it in any way. And so anybody who voted for Trump or supported Trump, I think there were justifiable reasons to do so. And I'm not saying that now with this one thing it should completely like you should completely sort of roll
Oh, but
back.
this is
But
it. This is
I really want to see from people. I mean, let's go to Trump's cabinets. We've talked about how many sort of, I think generally his cabinet is pro-Israeli, but sort of specific people who are pro-Israeli. Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth. He had the Senate hearing, if yesterday or a few days ago, when he said every single member of Hamas. Are they
yesterday.
gonna say something? Will they? They should honestly, if they actually believe for their, if they actually hold their pro-Israeli positions, they should resign from the cabinet. I mean, especially, I mean, Huckabee specifically. Is he the ambassador to Israel?
He's
I
the new
mean,
ambassador to Israel
yeah,
soon. Yeah.
this, I could understand for someone like, some of the other ones that don't, let's say, have the are not secretaries of the, let's say, relevant sort of fields. But for someone who is an actual ambassador to Israel, do something like this happens, and you are okay with just continuing.
Well, some of the people who voted didn't vote, say, because they objected to both, or some of the people who voted for Harris because of this, and I will say the people who voted for Trump who even recognized that Trump had flaws when they were doing that, because I don't think an objectivist can honestly have thought that we had a decent choice this year in either direction. In some ways, we have to be, whoever you voted for, at least you had to be critical of whoever, if you were voting for someone, whoever they were. But it's all the more urgent and imperative that if you voted for one person or the other, that person gets in power and does something bad, that you are the first to line up and criticize it. It is incumbent on those who voted for Trump to criticize this if they care about civilization, if they care about those hostages. Think about that. I understand that the families want their loved ones home. I would be crazy wanting to get my wife back if she were a hostage. I would be irrational perhaps about it, but I hope people would ignore me for the sake of all the other wives and children out there who might and will be taken hostage. But it is imperative look, all those people who voted for Trump must be morally opposed to this and publicly opposed to this. It is imperative on their part more than anyone else's. I don't care who he voted for, really. Obviously, both candidates had profound flaws, and it was a hard judgment call if you were going to vote for one of the two. But my God, everyone out there who publicly supported Trump should also be publicly critical of this deal. It is despicable. It is the betrayal of civilization. It's the betrayal of Israel. And frankly, as I say, it is actually the betrayal of those hostages that Trump said he wanted, demanded being released. But that's not the only value here, Mr. Trump. The other value here is future hostages, the continued existence of Hamas, the sanctioning of Hamas. That's what you're doing here, and that has the potential to be vastly more dangerous. So what price are you willing to pay for 1,000 more hostages, Mr. Trump?
Yeah,
It is despicable.
And to go a bit more broadly, someone in the chat says if Trump really betrays Israel, a lot of people in the right might wake up and maybe even leave the right. Someone also says this isn't how MAGA works. Whatever Trump does is what MAGA supports. And this is what really scares me the most when it comes to sort of what Trump represents. It reminds me of, when there was the Watergate scandal and Nixon was impeached, and uh, he was basically almost kicked out of the Republican Party. His party left him pretty much, saying
All
this
the
is
senior
yeah,
Republican senators took a walk up to the White House and said, "It's time to go, Mr. Nixon."
yeah,
Those
basic,
were the leaders of his party that told him to go.
yeah, basically saying that's it, that's just too much. And what happened in the next election? Well, Republicans lost. Now, go to Trump after January 6th. Again, some Republicans left him, but many have sort of stood by him. And what happened afterwards? Trump won the election. And that's what really scares me, the fact that if you stick by your party, if you stick by MAGA, whatever it means, it will actually sort of like
Well,
help
look,
you. And that's
I,
what is scares me.
one can still say, okay, I think this is horrible and horrific and a betrayal, but Kamala Harris would be even
Yeah,
worse.
no. I
I
mean,
can't see
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But
But
on
I
the
mean
other hand,
specifically the
you're
fact
not
that,
critical of this,
yeah, yeah.
then what you're doing is you're just worshiping your political leader. My leader can do no wrong. Oh, it's right if Trump does it, it's right. Whatever it is, whether it's tariffs or a deal with Hamas, Trump is my guy, so I'm going to be with
Yeah.
him. Whatever my Republican principles are,
Yeah,
they're
but just
thrown
quickly,
into the waste paper basket.
I wasn't saying like all people should have like left the Republican Party, but the
Right.
fact that Trump was the next nominee, like imagine if Nixon was after Watergate scandal, Nixon was like the next Republican nominee for president. That would be like scary, and that's what sort of really scares me. And even with this is like another thing when I think Trump really betrayed large, like Republican Party is supposed to be the pro-Israeli party. I mean, Israel is something that even among historically was sort of a unifying feature between even Democrats and Republicans, or at least
Was
between
by
the
one
moderate
one
ones.
time it was a bipartisan thing to support Israel.
Yeah, and now it seems almost like the opposite.
Right. It's a
Basically, both parties
bipartisan.
are betraying Israel in a different way, and
Trump did what
Republicans
Biden
are
couldn't.
better at it almost.
Exactly. Trump did what Biden couldn't. That is the worst condemnation of Trump I can think of. If you're from, it should be from the mind of someone who actually opposed Biden. Look, if you thought that Biden helped bring all this about, then what you should do is oppose this deal because Trump is doing, quote, what Biden couldn't do. So what? Biden, a powerful, effective, efficacious Biden? That's what you wanted? That was the alternative? No, it's just the opposite. It's just the opposite. An efficacious Biden would be even worse than a Biden whose mind is disintegrated.
We have a super chat from Christian. Thank you so much. He says, I guess those Israelis supporting the deal think that they will prevent future hostage taking by security measures. Maybe there is also a deal with Trump to attack Iran. So first about the,
Better
I,
be. There better be
yeah,
something. I mean, my God, are we going to allow the mullahs to continue to exist and
yeah.
fund?
Sorry, yeah, because I want to go to that, but we don't have much time, so I want to first comment
Okay,
on the hostage thing. I mean, it would go against anything we've seen so far. I mean, Israel is pulled out of Gaza originally, which that definitely would have been less secure. So any idea of sort of people actually thinking that uh, I just don't think so. People just don't. I think the biggest problem is people don't think ideologically. They view, as me and James have done an episode about the former Israeli general speaking about it, and the fact that people view Hamas as they did ISIS, as if this is just some terrorist group that is imposing itself on population. No, Hamas, Palestinians and Hamas are the same. There is no Hamas without the Palestinians, and so
got to get that humanitarian aid. Yeah,
because people don't see it in that way, it is impossible to ever, you cannot solve a problem if you don't even recognize it's a problem, if you don't even recognize it for what it is. And maybe with the possible deal with Trump to attack Iran, well, it would fill me with some confidence. I don't see why how these two things fit together. I don't see
right. It
why.
doesn't encourage me to think it would anything like that. A real attack against Iran, which is really what we need, is going to happen.
Yeah, if we are going after Iran, well, let's also go against Hamas. How do these things like go against each other? I have,
One's the agent for the other, just as Hezbollah is the agent for Iran and the Houthis are the agent for Iran and all the evil Islamism in the area. Come on. No, Mr. Trump, you have not impressed me. Anyone who did, from an objectivist perspective, sort of hold their nose to vote for Trump really ought to publicly condemn this. They are the first, as you point out, but to ask for a principled position from a man who would obviously negotiate with any dictator on the globe, now we really see the substance of that. We really see that Trump will cut a deal. And it doesn't matter how evil a dictator or a terrorist you might be, no matter what atrocities you advocate and have caused, he will cut a deal with you.
someone says ceasefire does not mean end to the war, and we can talk about that definitely more on the reality show about because some people have been saying, maybe Israel will just break the deal in a few days or so. But we'll discuss that more on the reality show.
With the president who helped engineer the deal, I don't think so. Anyway, yeah, we'll talk about it more.
We also have a super chat from Jeff. Thank you so much. He says, quoting, "The Lord and the devil are now playing chess. The devil cheats and wins more souls. As for the Lord, well, he's just doing his best."
Well put. Yeah, no, this is obviously, you don't play chess with the devil at all. You don't negotiate with the devil at all. We have no values or principles in common. It can only hurt our values. And we don't have principles if we negotiate with monsters like this.
Uh, and we also have a super chat from Wes. Thank you so much. He says, "I didn't think my opinion of Trump could have gone any lower." And yeah, it's for me, it almost has been at like zero. That with anything new that comes in, it's like it almost doesn't have an effect, right? Because there's just so much and again. With this coming in, it is in some way it is a new law. In some way, it is sort of something fundament, maybe not fundamentally different, but sort of like an order of magnitude worse than what we've seen before.
I have to agree. There is no defense of this ceasefire deal. No, it may mean that the war goes on, but given the terms of the ceasefire, given the agreement itself, it means Hamas terrorists will be released into the wild in large numbers. Hamas has been sanctioned. Hostage taking has been rewarded, ladies and gentlemen. There's nothing good to say about this. If you're not like the super chatter and you did think, well, okay, maybe there's something, Trump is better than Harris, let's make the best case we can for it. You really do have to come out against this, even if you voted for Trump, even if it's, quote, your guy. All the more urgent for you to denounce this as the moral betrayal of civilization that it represents. The
Remember,
despicable moral betrayal of civilization it represents.
a member in the chat says Daniel is like, I hate to say I told you so. And I haven't said it yet, and I don't want to say it because
It's kind
it
of rude, but it's
yeah.
true. But as I
Once
say, Rosie and I said this on October 9th, 2 days after October 7th, 2023. Rosie was saying precisely the same thing in an interview with me shortly after this happened. We feared exactly this. And fast forward now a year plus, and look, behold, that's what we
uh,
have.
I think the member in the chat meant specifically with Trump and why, well, yeah, I
Yeah.
was very critical even before, basically saying this would happen. I don't want to say that because once Trump won, I was really hoping that I was wrong about what's going to happen. I didn't want this to happen, just because I could do, I told you so. That cannot outweigh any sort of, real evil that is coming out of this. Um,
This is the evil of the art of the deal. If the art of the deal means you will negotiate with the devil, we can never negotiate with the devil. And this is the devil on earth, ladies and gentlemen.
So yeah, we'll continue talking on the reality show. Make sure to check out that. We'll continue there until so that's going live in just a few minutes. Link is in the chat. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you James for joining me here, and we'll see you in a bit. Bye bye.
Be safe.